Welcome to Outside Shots, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. I'm your boy, Saul Bookman. As you can see, I'm solo today. Well, not completely solo because Eric Ruby is behind the Mac right now, so I appreciate that. But EJ, listen, you go up to the Mile High City, you start to have a little too much fun watching Ryan Dunn drop threes and whatnot. And you get in kind of late and you just, listen. EJ likes to talk about how he's a morning person, but, today, not so much. So it's going to be me today. I hope you guys are all okay with that. Steven, Austin, KO, Amelia, appreciate you guys for joining us today, or joining me today, I should say. And it's going to be a fun one.
You know where I heard Eddie is? I heard he's hanging out with Ryan Dunn, getting tips on how to improve his jump shot.
Oh,
yeah, he saw Ryan Dunn shooting. He was like, "Ooh, I could learn a thing or two from him."
All right. Okay.
I figured if we throw some shade, he might actually show up.
He might. Yeah, I might have to send him some of these clips so he can see what kind of shade he was getting in the morning. But
Good thing my face isn't on screen.
Listen, man, it's been great to see the Suns play, and really, let's just go ahead and start with the biggest elephant in the room, how good Ryan Dunn can possibly be, because I think earlier on when he got drafted, and really even during Summer League, I think there was a lot of concern about whether or not this guy could actually put it together to be a consistent three-point shooter. And that was the key. He had to be a consistent three-point shooter. He can slash and get to the rim and all that stuff. That was never a doubt. But the three-point shooting, because we've seen it hurt us in the past, was the biggest thing. And the fact that Ryan Dunn has performed at the level, not just in terms of making his shots, but also taking the shots, being aggressive in his shot-taking process, I think has been the most encouraging thing for Suns fans all the way around. And just to give you a snippet of that, if you don't know already, Ryan Dunn has made the same amount of threes in 4 preseason games that he did his entire college career at the University of Virginia. That is the most insane stat you could possibly see in today's, chuck and duck era. You know what I mean?
It was funny last night to see people on the timeline be like, man, if Ryan Dunn shot like this in college, he's like a top 10, top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing was, wow, one of the best defensive prospects we've seen in years. But he cannot shoot a lick. But when you saw him actually take the shots, it's not like a Michael Kidd-Gilchrist mechanically broken jump shot, right? It looked okay.
Yeah.
And then you're like, if he could be serviceable, what's so encouraging is just the confidence to just chuck and chuck and chuck. But none of them were like stupid shots in the sense that it was like, oh, well, you can't make that, because obviously he did make it. But in the sense of like, this is something that you've put that like the 10,000 hours in. It really feels like all that talk over the summer of Ryan Dunn improving his jump shot was not just lip service, which how does that not get you excited for your rookie already in his one NBA offseason before he even plays a game, has worked on his biggest weakness, and it's preseason, but seemingly at least improved.
Oh, yeah, by a mile. And I think the most encouraging thing, too, about this is, again, I love to see, I love it more when I see things that are a little bit more external than they are, obvious. And what I mean by that is the shot that he hit where he turned around and he saw KD there and they kind of dapped each other up and he was hyped, right? That told me a lot. Just that 1 5-second moment just told me a lot, right? It told me, Ryan Dunn has been working on his three-point shot, and KD's probably somebody that's reinforced, like, keep shooting. B, the fact that he hit that three and he was kind of, listen, you kind of talk a little trash to your homies when you're doing somebody in, right? And that's what he felt like. He was just like, yeah, got that dude, right? And I just love that. That's just something I didn't know if I was going to see this early on. So it's fantastic. I can't wait to see his continued improvement because, again, if he matches the 3-point, just arsenal to his defensive prowess, he immediately becomes an easy top 5, top 10 draft pick because of all those tools. And not to mention the fact that he's just a good all-around team player. And in Bud's system, again, they're chucking up threes at a much significantly higher rate than they were a year ago. Oh, man, it's hard to not be excited about what this could mean in the long run.
Well, and that's kind of the thing, right? He's so smart. He's such a smart player, and he works really hard. And that's like, you play for Virginia defense, and you're their best defender. You have to be really good on that side of the ball. And it's not like his offensive output has come at the sacrifice of his defense, like you saw last night against the Nuggets. I mean, he's blocking Russell Westbrook without even jumping off of the ground, right? Like, he's stripping the ball when it's going into the paint. Even against Detroit, when they played at MSU, he strips the ball from Cade Cunningham, goes down, and takes a pull-up transition three, right? If you're talking about matching what he did in the preseason, which I don't think he's going to be 6 threes a game good. If he is, then we're not just talking top 5, top 10 draft pick. We're talking one of the best young players in the league, period, out of all the last drafts, if he is doing that. But if he's consistent from 3 and reliable and hitting open shots, you're going to have uncomfortable conversations about sixth man, seventh man, right? And if Tyus Jones gets hurt, Monte Morris, Grayson Allen, or Ryan Dunn starting. And going into next season, you surefire have to start him, which is a great problem to have. And that's just if he's shooting 35% on open threes. Yeah. If he emulates what he's doing now, where he's going off of the bounce, how do you not put him on the court with Beal, Booker, and Durant? What do you do?
Yeah.
You can't do anything, because that's like taking Josh Okogie, making him a couple inches taller, and giving him a confident 3-point shot. Because, like, I love Okogie, but it's not just the fact that he doesn't shoot a good percentage. It's that sometimes he seems downright scared to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
And Ryan Dunn seems scared to not shoot the ball at this point, which is much easier to tone down and change than just flip from Okogie all of a sudden being confident in his J.
Oh, yeah. A 1,000,000%. I think it's a great problem to have when you feel like you might have too many pieces to try and fit all at the same time on the court, especially. And I think the most important part is I think Bud will definitely find a nice rhythm to substitution patterns. And listen, folks, we can stop with the whole who's going to start, who's not going to start kind of thing. Who cares? Who cares? What matters is who's in there in the fourth quarter, who's getting those 6 to 8 minute runs, because the first quarter never dictates the game. It's the fourth quarter that matters. So who is that lineup that Coach Bud is going to go with in the last 6 minutes of the game that is going to try to seal a victory for you? That's what I'm the most interested in. I want to see, is it going to be Tyus? Is it going to be, Ryan? Is it going to be a mixture of both? Where does Grayson Allen fit into all this? Even at the center position, Nurk or Plumlee, who is going to be the most versatile guy down the stretch that they're going to want to utilize? And I think all those things play a factor. And Ryan Dunn is really trying to make a name for himself and get himself on that court a lot more. Oso behind him in terms of, anticipated playing time. Obviously, he's a good all-around player. He's really showed that he has the ability to play in the NBA. I just do think when I look at Oso, my biggest concern, and it's always going to be my biggest concern, is not whether or not he can hold up defensively. I think he'll do an adequate job defensively, if not better. I think offensively, when you're talking about everything except for shooting, I think he's perfectly suited to be able to be a part of this lineup, whether it be with the likes of the big three or whoever, right? But I do think teams will start to scheme and make sure that they force Oso to have to make those little floaters and make those one-handed little jump shots, because I wouldn't trust it. If I was a team, I wouldn't trust what he was doing out there. I know, listen, time will tell, but that's the one thing that's my concern is you have to make sure that you threaten teams with your ability to at least score at a decent rate. And I just don't know if what he's doing is going to be able to play out in the long term.
I mean, he's the most unknown and committed offensive threat that's going to be on the floor probably at any time. If you're on the floor with the big three and Tyus Jones, they're going to leave you open. They're going to let you cook, and they want the offense to go through you. If you're coming off the bench with Grayson Allen, Monte Morris, Royce O'Neal, again, you're still the most unproven, right? But he's the most athletic. And I think the thing for me with him is he's so smart in the same way that like Ryan Dunn is so smart. It's going to be impossible not to give him minutes because he's going to be a good connector, a good passer, a smart defender. I think he needs to get a little bit bigger. Just in the modern NBA, there are some dudes that can just get rough and tough down there, and he's going to get thrown around a bit, but he can. Like, that's definitely something that he can work on. And you're right. Like, that floater, which he went to in college a ton, hasn't been super successful in the preseason, but...
And that's all he has.
Yeah,
he doesn't have a jumper.
No, he has no jumper, so it's the floater, and then it's the vertical spacer, right? But with the big three, that's a really big deal because we thought Eubanks was going to be that guy. Wasn't. And the thing with Plumlee so far, people are in chat are saying it seems like Oso's outplayed Plumlee. Now, it's early and Plumlee's a vet, but Oso definitely has more of a vertical threat than anybody else on the team, besides maybe Ryan Dunn. And that's really important when you have your point guards in Monte and Tyus, because driving and kicking to three of the best shooters in the league is awesome. But if you have somebody to lob it to as well, then what a defense is supposed to do.
Yeah, athletically, Oso is definitely on another level compared to Plumlee. Plumlee, coming to the end of his career, older, he doesn't have that spring as much as he used to, but still serviceable, obviously. I do want to get to a couple things in the chat, though, because here we go again. Steve Holler had said that, it feels like Ryan Dunn starting instead of Beal is the way to go. The Suns might want to trade Beal for a good defensive center and rim runner. Okay, Steve, I love you. I appreciate you joining us this morning. However, that's just never going to happen. And we could stop talking about that because you're not going to bench Bradley Beal. That's just not happening. Nobody in their right mind would ever do that. The Suns coaching staff certainly isn't going to do that. And also on top of that, you added in the whole trade thing, which is also never going to happen because A, Bradley Beal has a no trade clause, and B, nobody's taking on that salary for what could amount to limited production depending on what scenario he finds himself in. And you're certainly not going to trade a good, adequate big man or rim runner for somebody like a Bradley Beal because those guys are a dime. They're not a dime a dozen. They're rare to find good ones. And when you get a good one, you don't want to let it go. And so that's my 2 cents on that. I think Ryan Dunn is going to find himself in the lineup plenty of times. He's going to find himself in the lineup with Beal. He's going to find himself in the lineup with Book. He's going to find himself in the lineup with KD. I don't think you need to blow those three up just to service Ryan Dunn because you're talking about three elite scorers. Ryan Dunn is not an elite scorer. He's shown you the ability to be able to hit the wide open three. But you know why he gets a lot of wide open threes, or at least why he's going to in the regular season, is because of those three guys that are going to open up things for him to be able to shoot wide open on the outside. If you start to take some of those things away, then guess what? He's not as impactful as he could have been. And so you have to keep that in mind when you're trying to tinker around. And I know that's exactly what Coach Bud is trying to think of is like these substitution patterns and who he's throwing out there at different times. He's trying to get a feel of who can do what, who can play at a high level without the need or services of the big three, and who's really trying to get out there and shine. And I think that's the big thing for me when I'm looking at this Suns team and how they're going to transition throughout the year.
What do you think about some of the non-rookies, but some of the younger guys on the team, like a Bol, right? What have you liked from him in the preseason? Because if Dunn and Ighodaro work out, right, and Bol somehow works out and continues to get better, then you're looking at a pretty good young core that can grow over the season.
Yes. You know how I feel about Bol. Was not on board with him when he signed originally last year, but I felt like I saw enough throughout the season that gave me a lot of hope and promise for what he could be this season. And listen, I thought last night he had a couple of shots that were really nice. Hit the three at the top that I thought, again, that's a confidence builder. That's something that Bol needs the opportunity to be able to show himself off. And I think he's getting that right now. And I would not be surprised if those three guys, obviously Bol's going to need to extend one more year in order to be able to get a more lucrative contract after the next season. So hopefully he sticks around for that because I think the situation he's in here in Phoenix is really, really good. But I try not to get too far ahead in terms of a promising young core, because that can lead you down this path of foolishness. Because when you're looking at Bol, he has 1 year on this contract right now. And so if he balls out this season,
He might be gone.
And so, we're talking about really the other two rookies who have, time on their contract to be able to develop and grow into, the future of this franchise.
Yeah, I think the fun thing with Bol is he can do things that like nobody else on the court can do physically, but B, he's shown that he's got that confidence too. First preseason game, he didn't take a shot, which is like, but then against Denver the other night, I mean, he was launching, and some of them didn't look too great, but he was shooting way more.
I'm okay with that though.
Yeah, he's shooting way more than he's going to in the regular season. I'm imagining a lineup of like Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Ryan Dunn, Bol, Oso Ighodaro, and I just think that's so much fun.
Yeah,
and if Bol can play well, and he doesn't have crazy counting stats. I mean, he obviously wants to be here. He re-signed here over this last summer. It would be not out of the realm of possibility to think that somehow, some way, this front office would find a way to keep him around. But I mean, even if it is just Dunn and Ighodaro, I mean, when's the last time that you've had two rookies for this team that you're like, oh wow, I'm really excited, and it doesn't feel like we reached for them in the draft. It feels like they fell to us and we got steals.
Yeah.
Because the last pair of rookies you're excited for were Ayton and McHale, right? And obviously you're not reaching for Ayton. And then I know some people want to have revisionist history with Luka, and some people thought it was Luka. DeAndre Ayton was...
like truly excited.
DeAndre Ayton was very, very, very much deserving of being a number one overall pick. Even if you didn't agree with it, he was good enough.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can get excited over him.
It for sure.
But when you take somebody in the late first round and then the second round like Dunn and Ighodaro, and they play above those expectations, there's a different sense of excitement of like, oh, we lucked out, or even better, what some people are saying in the chat, our front office and scouting already in 2 years looks better because Toumani Camara is balling over in Portland right now.
He is. Yeah, he is. No, you're absolutely right. You're right. You make a good point about the excitement of these young guys. And listen, nobody was excited about Cam Johnson. I don't care what they say. Nobody was excited about Cam Johnson when he got drafted because
I was angry when he got drafted.
Yeah, half the damn crowd didn't know who he was. You know what I mean? Like, I knew who Cam Johnson was because he was getting recruited by U of A. And then he shunned them for North Carolina. That's
like,
when
whatever.
I should
have been on the Cam Johnson bandwagon.
I mean, maybe. But, like, nobody knew what to expect. Plus, he was an older rookie. And then he balled out, and everybody fell in love with him. And I think right now we're looking at a guy like Ryan Dunn and Oso who are coming in with a clean slate. The expectations are kind of mid right now for them. Like, nobody thinks that they're going to be world beaters. But I also don't think that anybody thinks they're going to be just like the worst of the worst, right? Like that was the threshold. Just don't be trash is the threshold, right? But it's looking like they might be more than that. They might be actual contributors to what people are hoping for will ultimately be a long playoff run this season instead of what happened last year in the short exit. So there's a lot still be determined. But I mean, the promise of Ryan Dunn this year has got to make you feel good, because when you looked at how they lost last year, especially to a guy like Anthony Edwards and all the other superstars that play that kind of hybrid 2, 3, 4 position, Ryan Dunn matches up with just about every single one of them, which is exactly what you needed, because we didn't really have a defensive stopper outside of Josh Okogie, and now you do. And you saw how much Jalen McDaniels was a pain for the Suns last year, a pain for Book, a pain for the entire team at some points in terms of how he played against the Suns during that sweep for Minnesota last year. And now you just replicated him on your own squad with Ryan Dunn, which is exactly what you were all hoping for and what we were all hoping for. You know, Eric, I'll ask you a question. When you look at this team, and let's take the rookies out of it. Let's take Oso and Ryan Dunn out of it. Who has been the one guy that you have been pleasantly surprised about?
Pleasantly surprised about? I think it's Royce. Royce looks a little slimmer.
And chat, feel free to chime in.
Royce looks a little slimmer. I'm excited because I think kind of lost in the shuffle of the craziness of last year was the fact that Royce O'Neal got traded for at the trade deadline, did not get a ton of time to, integrate himself into this offense and the defense. And Now he has a full offseason. He said he cut candy out of his diet. He looks slimmer. He had a dunk the other day. When's the last time you saw Royce O'Neal dunk? Like, be honest with me, right? He's going to be such an important and impressive part. But a lot of people in the chat are saying Colin Gillespie.
Yeah.
Gillespie's an NBA player. No doubt about it. If he played for the Wizards or if he played for the Pistons or he played for the Trailblazers, he'd be on an NBA roster, fully guaranteed with a contract. No question about it.
I have a hot take about Colin Gillespie.
You think he should be the backup point guard?
I think he will be the backup point guard.
By the end of the season?
Yes.
100%. I think he might be a full roster spot, and I think he might get playing time, but I think for at least this season, it's Monte's, and then he might be the heir apparent to the backup.
I think Colin Gillespie fits better
than Monte?
Mm-hmm.
See, Colin's definitely more of that aggressive type, right? And it's funny because, you compare the white player to white players. Somebody was in our chat the other day saying he's our TJ McConnell. But he definitely has that, like, fearlessness about him. I mean, the dude averaged 9 boards per game in the G League. At his size, you have to be fearless. And he's got that scoring bug. But I think for this season with this amount of scores and everything, I think Monte still slides in that role. But I do think that Colin gets that final roster spot one way or another. And one injury to Tyus or Monte, and he's getting playing time, and I'm comfortable with that. Like, I'm 100 times more comfortable with that than a Saban Lee, like the situation we were in last year. Colin's a legit NBA player, no question about it.
For sure. Like, on both ends of the floor. Yeah. Like, he gets after it on both ends defensively. I mean, listen, it's easy to make the TJ McConnell comparison. I get it. I mean, for obvious reasons, 2 little white guys that play hard on both ends of the court, and they're just fan favorites.
It makes sense.
It does. I mean, it does. But there's other players that I look at and I'm like, okay, all right, well, I like him too. But Colin's got a good all around game. I think he's going to get everybody involved, and that's what you want your point guard to do. He can also get you a bucket, and he just plays hard. And listen, for a team last year, the biggest thing that I've taken away from this team and where they're going is I just don't feel like the energy will be as low as it was at points last season. That was so debilitating when it looked like, man, do I care more than these guys right now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's like at media day, there were not so subtle shots at Frank Vogel, and Bradley Beal was, I'm just excited to have fun. I'm excited to have fun again. And we say the rookies can inject that type of life. Bull can inject that type of life. Colin Gillespie can do that because he's having fun. But I think it actually comes down to just Bud. Because if you're playing a fun brand of basketball where the coach is enabling you to do, besides dunking, which I don't have much experience with, the most exciting thing in basketball is shooting a 3 and hitting it, right? And especially a deep 3. And if you have a coach that's not only enabling you but encouraging you to play fast and to shoot a lot and to shoot from deep, even if you are, let's say, unproven in that area like Ryan Dunn, there's a lot of fun with that. And then there's a lot of fun when that works. And this team has the offensive firepower for that to work. Yeah. And if Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Tyus Jones, Monte Morris, like if that offensive unit is just like clicking at all times and everything around them is feeding off of them, it's going to be impossible not to have fun. They're not going to win 82 games, but we won't feel like for a long period of time like we felt last season where the team had no identity. They weren't having fun. And like man, like the body language police are out there, which even if it's not warranted, like you're not in a good place if people are like, hey, here's these 5 screenshots of Book and Katie's body language the other day, Yeah.
The biggest takeaway I think is I don't think this team is going to be viewed as soft this year. Like, think about last year, just last year alone. Like, Yuta Watanabe is not talking any trash to anybody. He's not. And if you talk trash to him, he might just disappear, which it felt like he did in the first half of the season before he got let go anyway.
Yeah.
KBD, same thing. Just mild-mannered, didn't really say much, didn't really talk a lot of trash or anything like that, right? And it just felt like, and then obviously like Drew Eubanks, and the whole getting punched. And like, I don't know, there's something about that made me feel like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful because getting sucker punched is getting sucker punched and that's not cool. However, like for that to come out and then also come out that like there was no other fight, like he didn't throw a punch bag, nothing happened. Like I just felt like, do people view the Phoenix Suns as soft? Like, do they feel like They're just kind of like, meh?
I think that's the coaching identity from it.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah. And listen, if Coach Yuck over here is just like, oh, the vibes are all great, everything's all cool, then you get swept. Like, there's a reason why you're not here anymore. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Frank Vogel. Like, as it was put to me by a lot of people, he's a very nice guy. And he is a very nice guy. And I had the pleasure of meeting him, and I really enjoyed meeting him. But I just didn't. You have to be, as Mike Luke would say, a leader of men. And if people don't feel like you are going to lead them to the promised land, then they will quickly dismiss you if they feel like you're not giving them a reason to trust what you are doing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and you have to make people want to fight for you over 82 games. It's a long season, and I love KD, and I love Book, and I love Beal, but they are leaders in their own right, but they're not leaders in the sense that they're like rah-rah guys.
No.
Right? And that's completely fine, but it's a coach's job to see that and to see where maybe he's needed a little bit more and to step up in that way. And you saw at the end of last season when KD was asked, so who should be the leader on this team? And he goes, coach. Right? No hesitation. Coach. Mm-hmm. But when Frank Vogel was asked, he's like, oh, we're all leaders. Everybody here is a leader. Kumbaya, we're holding hands. Like, there was just that certain disconnect, and it didn't come in the form of seeing it as far as like production drop off from a Booker or a Durant, but you saw it in just the way the game was played and the lack of joy. And this team is so talented that if they have joy and they play fun and they play fast, the sky is the limit for them. I'm not going to guarantee a championship, but they certainly have the talent to get there.
For sure. No, I feel you.
Exciting stuff, man.
No, absolutely exciting stuff. Make sure you guys hit that like button. And listen, we're going to get to some drama. But first, you know our good folks over at Circle K have got your back. You see the Studio K sign right behind me. It's the best deal out there. You can't go wrong. America's Thirst Stop. You could join the Inner Circle for free by just joining their membership program, the Inner Circle app. It's fantastic. You can save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups. And then after that, it's 3 cents. Then it bumps up to 5 cents, depending on how many times you use it. It pays for itself in the long run. You can't go wrong by becoming an Inner Circle app member today. And then there's also plenty of other member-exclusive deals like discounts on drinks, as you can see right here. You got the Froster, 79 cents if you use your Inner Circle app and you put in your phone number at the counter. Guess what? It turns into 69 cents, which is
nice.
There we go, Eric. And so enjoy your member exclusive beverage deals. Inner Circle members like you, I've already said that. Join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. Folks, you guys see this sweet looking lid right here? It is not a Branded Bills hat, and I'm very disappointed in myself. So what I'm going to do,
you gonna take out the ASU Branded Bills hat?
Is show you this beautiful choice lid right here by Branded Bills. Listen, the stitching on the side, you got the Branded Bills logo all stitched up nice. The feel of the hat is great. It's breathable on the back. You see the holes on the back. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there it is. It's legitimately
the most comfortable hat I've ever worn in my entire life.
It's stretchable. Like it's just fantastic. It's one of my favorite. Plus the seal right here is rubber. It's a beautiful hat. It just is. Even if you're not a U of A fan, you can see the ASU one right there. So don't get on me about it because you're being blind about this. It's fantastic. You can't go wrong. So Branded Bills, check them out. Go to Branded Bills and use promo code PHNX to save yourself some money today. 20% off on your first order. You can't go wrong with that. Again, elevate your brand with Branded Bills. It's the perfect headwear for the perfect time, and you can save yourself 20% off by using PHNX. So there's some drama in the league. And I kind of like it. I love drama.
It's fun.
I love drama on the court. I like it when dudes talk trash to each other. And I really liked it when Donte DiVincenzo gave the Knicks the business, specifically Tom Thibodeau yesterday. And as he's at the free throw line, he utters these words. He says, "Thank you for the trade, Tibbs. Thank you for the trade." That's what happens when they let you run the show, in my estimation. And then afterwards, after the game was over and everybody was kind of saying their goodbyes, Donte got into it with Rick Brunson off the bench of the Knicks. Rick Brunson obviously is the father of Jalen Brunson, and there's a little drama there. And I am here for it. I like it.
It's like life, man. Drama's always really fun when you're not involved.
Yes.
Right? When it's just, and especially when it's a team that like you are invested in, like the Timberwolves. It's so much fun just to watch somebody sit back and be like, you took that really personally, because the reports were that Donte didn't really want to do the Nova thing and come off the bench and lose his minutes, but he also seems like he really didn't want to leave the Knicks either. Like he's mad that he got traded. I don't know. I don't want this to happen because I want the Suns to play in the finals. But when we were watching the preseason game before the Suns, I was like, this would be a really fun finals matchup just for the storylines and the beef involved with it.
Absolutely. And so I loved it. I liked seeing that kind of stuff because obviously Donte felt some kind of way about being traded in the first place. And I think there's probably a little bit of like, maybe I'm not a big Tibbs fan.
Yeah.
And this kind of cemented it. I was willing to deal with it before because like we're a good team. My boys just got traded to the team. So now you got this whole Villanova squad and like, what's not to love? You get to play with your dudes. But now that you're on the outside, and listen, I don't know what's been said by you guys on the shows about this Karl Anthony Towns trade or anything like that. But I actually think that was a great trade for Minnesota. I think a lot of people have echoed that because I think Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo fit the identity more of what Minnesota's trying to build in terms of their defensive tenacity and toughness than Cat did. Cat going to the Knicks, I feel like it's different because of caliber of score, but I feel like it's going to be no different in terms of actual results. And that's when Carmelo got traded to the Knicks.
Yeah, but Carmelo didn't have the supporting cast like this.
No, I get that. No, I totally get that. But I think you're going to get the same results. I think the Knicks are going to be, I think they're wildly overrated this year.
Interesting. I think they're clearly the second best team in the East. I think them and Philly are arguing for that, but I have less faith in Philly, especially to stay healthy. Now, the thing with Karl Anthony Towns that is interesting is that you're going from Mitchell Robinson, who barely ever plays, and when he does, he is zero spacer at all, or you had to play Hartenstein or Randall at the 5, right? And the only look that you had to stretch big was Randall at the 5, and Randall's undersized. Mm-hmm. Now you have a 7-footer who jacks up threes like nobody's business, surrounded by tenacious defenders in the likes of OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, and then the best isolation scorer in the game, or one of, in Jalen Brunson. That's an exciting combination. But for Minnesota, I'm really high on the Donte part of it. I think Dante's an awesome fit there because they needed more threes. They needed somebody to shoot from the perimeter on a wing or a guard-like basis. But with Randall, A, health is a major problem for him. But B, he can pass and he can move the ball, but I just don't know if offensively he fits next to Gobert as well as Cat did. Now, if Ant takes a step and Donte spreads the floor out, it might not matter, but if Julius isn't even healthy in the playoffs, which is a very real possibility, you're basically trading Karl Anthony Towns for Donte DiVincenzo, and I'm not the biggest fan of that for Minnesota.
Yeah, but how weary. You got to be careful with that. You talk about Julius Randle's unavailability in the playoffs because of injury, right? Think about how many times Rudy Gobert has been unplayable in the fourth quarters of key games.
Yeah.
Because of his lack of ability to be able to play on the perimeter. So you swap him out with Julius Randle now. And I feel like now you have a low post presence to go along with some of your outside perimeter scoring, especially, why am I forgetting his name? The guy off the bench.
Naz Reid.
Naz Reid, yeah. Especially if Naz Reid can be as consistent as he was last year. And so then you're looking at maybe a closing lineup of a solid 5, Ant. So you got Donte, Ant, maybe you have Naz, and then you have Julius, and then McDaniel. And I think if you have those 5, that's a pretty good, solid defensive 5 that you can roll out there in the last 5 minutes of a game. And I think that's what you're looking at more than you are, how does he fit next to Rudy Gobert? I think they'll figure that part out.
Yeah,
Mike Conley too, yeah.
I think also the fit with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle is a little bit iffy because the way that Randle plays, especially in the mid-range and everything, it kind of clogs up places that Anthony Edwards likes to go downhill and get to spots, whether it's a pull-up midi or it's just to get down to the paint. With Karl Anthony Towns, he is either in the paint or he's 2 feet behind the three-point line. And that leaves a lot of space for a player like Anthony Edwards to operate. But when you take that, and yes, Julius can shoot threes, but he's only had one season where he actually took it on a high volume with a high percentage. So he's going to be playing mid-range, mid-post play when there's value in that, but he's going to be hanging out in that area generally more. If he's playing with Rudy Gobert, that's now 2 defenders who are now in the vicinity of where Anthony Edwards wants to go to get to his shots. So unless
you mean on offense?
On offense.
Yeah.
So unless Ant develops a really good three-point shot, which is completely possible, he absolutely could add that. And this is, again, a different conversation. You're kind of clogging up things for him that weren't clogged before, and that might hurt him. I think there's a reality where both teams are better, and I see the path for the Timberwolves. I just think that path is a little bit tougher than it is for the Knicks because of the pure talent level of Cat and also the supporting cast. I think the Knicks starting lineup and even Deuce McBride in there as well. I would take that over the Timberwolves to win this year, but if you're going long term, I'm going to bet on Ant over everybody in this situation. But I think for this year that the Knicks top 5 are better than the Timberwolves.
I mean, I won't dispute you on that. Maybe it's just the Knicks franchise calling me, and me feeling like they are not. They always fall short. Like it's the Knicks. They always fall short. They're always a disappointment. Like they always are expected to be like X, and they always fall back to like Z. It's just what it is. So maybe that's part of it. I also think that Ant probably learned a lot in the Olympic run in terms of leadership and ability. I like the fact that Ant responded very well in the Olympics to being benched during key times, sometimes in the fourth quarter, and didn't make it a me show. It was all about we, and they kept winning, so it was all good. And I think that the Timberwolves will find a way to be able to utilize everybody's skills as good as anybody can expect. And I think I don't think there's going to be a significant drop-off is what I'm going to say about the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think they're going to be just as good as they were last year. And I would say also, like in terms of the driving, yeah, I get it with Rudy. Rudy's always going to congest everything because it's just Rudy. That's just what it is. But I think Julius Randle is good enough from the mid-range and the short corner that that won't be as big of an issue because you don't want to drop it off to him for a wide-open bucket either if Ant is penetrating or slashing to the rim. So I think, to me, I think the Timberwolves are better off. I'm just not a big fan of Cat. I think he's
and that's okay.
Just mid.
I would disagree with Cat being mid. I think Cat's actually
like
pretty good.
Mid for the expectation of what he should be.
I mean, he's a 4-time All-Star.
Yeah, but everybody thinks that like he should be like this MVP type caliber player. That's what everybody's always thought since he came out.
I mean, he's number 1 pick.
And he's always come close like to that next tier of superstardom, kind of like Book, right? Like for a little while, Book was like playing in that kind of second tier superstar till he finally broke through in 2021 and everybody like paid attention.
Right.
And then all of a sudden like, oh yeah, Book is actually legit. Well, yeah, we've known that forever, right? Cat has been kind of like, he was kind of given the opportunity and just was never able to be consistent enough or good enough to be that caliber superstar. And then the playoff struggles and then finally breaking through that. And I thought last year was going to be that time where like, okay, well, if Cat can get the Minnesota Timberwolves to the finals, holy crap.
Yeah.
But
the thing with Cat that I think is interesting is just purely like, I mean, he's 20 and 10 for his career with some insane 3-point volume we haven't seen from somebody his size. You can say that Dirk's a better shooter or, somebody from the past who's tall and can shoot's a better shooter. But as far as pure volume goes, there's not a 7-footer that has matched up with Karl Anthony Towns.
For sure.
And you're not asking him to be the best player on the court. And there are going to be nights where you don't even need him to be the second best player on the court.
But do you think mentally he's going to be able to live up to the hype in New York?
I think so. I don't think he's a mentally weak player. I don't. I really don't think so. I think sometimes he makes some mental lapses and mistakes as far as like fouls go and defensive rotations, but I don't view Karl Anthony Towns as a weak or a soft player. Part of that because of all the stuff he's gone through off the court as well, but he's from Jersey. Like I don't think that he is going to be somebody that like melts in front of the New York media or anything. I think he actually is somebody that could thrive in that situation.
Interesting.
And I think with him, like, I wouldn't say he's disappointed, because if you look at his career averages and what he's done so far for a number 1 overall pick, there are far, far, far worse. But nobody's going to get that respect and the admiration until they, get that ring or until they get to the finals. But somebody said it in the chat here. Austin says he thinks one of the main reasons that Phoenix lost to Minnesota was because of Cat.
Yeah,
and I don't think Randall can have the same impact. I think Cat's ceiling is higher. I think Randall can impact in different ways. But as far as matching up with the Phoenix Suns, this trade helps the Phoenix Suns, because now Kevin Durant will be guarding a Julius Randle instead of a Karl Anthony Towns. And defensively, that matchup bodes way more in favor of a KD than a Cat is, purely based off of just like physicality and size alone. Like 6'10" for Julius Randle, might even be a little bit shorter than that, versus a pure 7 foot running around screens like Steph Curry.
Cat's not running around screens like Steph Curry.
He's running. They run plays for him.
Don't ever say like Steph Curry. Like Steph Curry about Cat.
They call plays for him to run off ball, off of screens, and get him threes. Like, that is.
But that shit doesn't look like Steph Curry.
No, nothing looks like Steph Curry. But that's a lot easier to defend if you're going up against a Julius Randle mid-range post up or anything than it is the Karl Anthony Towns of it all. So I think Minnesota can get better. I think it's interesting. I think they made it a little bit more difficult to find that chemistry and continuity, but I see the path. I think with the Knicks, I'm really excited to see what they do, because they're in a weaker conference, and that top end talent and their perimeter defense. Whew, OG, Josh Hart, and McHale every single night.
It's tough.
I would not want to play them.
No, it's tough. Listen, like that again. That's why it was a little surprising that they would trade Julius Randle, because I did feel like Julius Randle defensively fit more from an identity standpoint than what Cat's going to bring. And this is, again, listen, we can sit here and talk about, Cat, played at Kentucky, which is, listen, if you're not living up to expectations in Kentucky, that can be a brutal place to play as well. Like any blue blood program you go to, if you're not in the national championship conversation, it can be a tough place to play, right? And so I know he could deal with that. I know he was dealt off the court circumstances that are just not great. Like, just the saddest thing you could hear about, losing family members to COVID, cancer. I mean, the whole 9 yards. He's been through it. But
he didn't miss a game in his NBA career until he got into a car crash.
I know. But the thing about this is that you have to throw in the curveball of Tibbs. And Tibbs could rub people the wrong way from time to time. And we've seen it. We've seen him have his opposers, and really just those players get worn down by Tibbs because they either couldn't handle it mentally or they couldn't handle it physically. And I do wonder if Cat is going to be able to do that. I just do.
I get it. And Tibbs is certainly a guy.
Sometimes you just look at a player, you just feel like, man.
But here's the thing. So here's the thing, though. I mean, Tibbs has coached Cat before in Minnesota, right? Yeah. And ever since Tibbs left Minnesota, whenever he's spoken about Karl Anthony Towns, he's had nothing but great things to say. And that Minnesota experiment. How
many times have coaches left and just absolutely trashed players?
No, I get it. But he's commended like his growth and his maturity and everything. And that situation with Jimmy Butler was just awful for everybody involved. But I don't think that New York makes this trade. Obviously, Donte DiVincenzo thinks that Tom Thibodeau is running the show. I don't think there's any way where they make this trade where Tibbs doesn't think that he fits in with that identity and with that culture. And the thing with Cat is he wants to win. And once you get over the kind of the sadness of getting traded from Minnesota without, I mean, this is a whole different conversation, but without any sort of heads up whatsoever for the franchise you've given a decade to. Mm-hmm. So Stephen Prisjon-Garner and I did a podcast about this after it happened, and it's on this channel, but to me, I like it. It's the closest thing that you can get in the NBA right now to the Phoenix Suns trading Devin Booker. Mm-hmm. Right? Just pure longevity standpoint with one franchise going through the mud. Like if the Suns traded Book after the finals run, that's about as close as you can get with Cat right now. Right? It's not exactly the same because Book is better. Book's the number one and they got to the finals, but spent a decade with the franchise, went through the really hard times, finally on a winner, finally surrounded by talent. Front office dumps him for some talent, but also because of money issues, right? If the Suns did that, you'd be heartbroken.
Yeah, a million percent.
But moving over to the Knicks, your hometown team, or you're from that area, and a coach that you are familiar with, and a team that's extremely talented in a weaker conference, that's an exciting prospect for somebody like a Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, think about the centers you have to go up against in the West. In the East, you got Joel Embiid, Kristaps Porzingis if he's healthy, Joel Embiid if he's healthy, and Bam. Right?
That's about it, yeah.
Right. Like Miles Turner, like good centers. But if you look in the West, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, Chet Holmgren's going to be taking a step. Like you have Victor Wembanyama. You have some pretty serious big men talent, and you are going to be playing with a Rudy Gobert and a Naz Reid, right? He's really the only center out there right now because Mitchell Robinson is hurt. So he might be excited at the opportunity to maybe live up to those expectations that you were talking about before, with a lot of offensive help as well.
Yeah, no,
I'm fascinated by both teams.
Listen, I could tell that you like Cat, and that's cool. And you laid out a really good argument. I'm just never going to believe it until I see it, because I feel like if there's ever been a player that has randomly done the dumbest things on the court, who has gone MIA in random times throughout his career when the team needed him the most, like it has been Cat. And like that's just not me just hating on Cat for the randomness of hating on Cat. It's just I don't know how that's going to transform when you're I know he lived in Jersey and all this other stuff, right? But you did live in Minnesota for like a decade, and nobody's fucking with you. Nobody's messing with you in Minnesota. Right? Nobody's messing with you. Like, you're off the grid, dude.
They love their teams there, too. Like, they support their teams ride or die.
Yeah, but you're not getting the profile that Cat is in now. Every morning, he's going to be on First Take. Like, every morning they talk about the Knicks. Every morning they talk about the Celtics. Every morning they talk about the Sixers, like, and the Lakers. Like, you're in one of those markets. You're in one of those teams. So every little thing that you do that doesn't live up to the expectation, I wonder how much that's going to impact him. But hey, a lot of the people in chat are saying it's not going to impact him. He's used to it, whatever. That's fine. Eric feels the same way. Cool. That's fine. I disagree, but hey, we'll find out. We'll find out down the road soon. Hopefully.
It'll be fun, right? I think with Cat, the last thing I'll say is, like, he is not somebody that I would trade for and be like, I want him to be the number one guy.
Yeah.
Right. If you were making this trade for the Knicks and it was like Karl Anthony Towns, we were trading for you to be our number one, I'm not there. I don't want that. Right. Like, that's when he's not on that Devin Booker level. That's when you can get worried about the fouls and everything. But you're asking him some nights, he won't even be your second or third best offensive player, because some of the nights that Mikal and OG have, like, their shooting and their ability on the wings, like, will step up there. And Jalen Brunson is the perfect counter to Cat's playoff dips that he's had in his career, or big moment dips. Jalen Brunson's the exact opposite. He's a playoff riser. He's a big moment riser. And that A, rubs off on the rest of the team, but B, puts like the security blanket on offense, at least for somebody like Cat, to where I have somebody who can drop 50 and step up in the playoffs on a consistent basis.
Do you feel like Jalen Brunson is going to, let's say, the longevity of his consistency on a high level, do you think that is maintainable? Like, do you think that that's something that can be like, because he gives me, not trying to be disrespectful, Knicks fans or whoever else is going to counteract this, but there's a part of me that feels a little Isaiah Thomas vibes in terms of like how elite he was with the Celtics for that 1 year, right? Like, and listen, Jalen Brunson's stock has definitely gone like this, right? There has not been a dip. And the minute he got to New York and he had a little bit more control and freedom to do what he wanted to do, balled out, was crazy good, right? Like, not taking that away whatsoever. He's one of the top 3-4 guards in the league right now as we speak. But I do wonder, like, is that sustainable for several seasons? Is this really who he is, or was that just really hot flash.
So I think with him this season, I'm comfortable. Next season, I'm comfortable. Once we get beyond that, I think you start having that thought in the back of your head of, when is this going to catch up? Because he's not the most athletic, which I guess could play into his, like you say, Devin Booker's game's going to age gracefully because he doesn't rely on his athleticism a lot. The only difference is Devin Booker's about 6 inches taller.
Yeah.
But with Brunson, one lower body injury, just the same way that Isaiah Thomas, I think it was his hips that really messed him up. It could completely derail his career. And he's the size of a guy that if you lose 5 to 10% of what you have from a speed and quick twitch perspective on offense, your offensive game is not down the toilet, but it's significantly worse than what it was before. Yeah. So I think that's a completely fair assessment of Brunson. And if I said 3-4 years from now, am I going to want to be paying Jalen Brunson the amount of money? I would say no. But this year specifically, I'm not worried about that. I don't think there'll be a drop off this year.
And I wasn't saying like, do I expect him to drop off this year? But I wonder, is it going to be a 5-year sustainable thing, or is it just 2 or 3 years?
I think 5 years from now, I would say Jalen Brunson's not playing nearly to the level, which is I think part of the reason why the Knicks are all in right now, and it's part of the reason why Brunson takes a pay cut to go all in right now, because he knows, I think they know, that small guards' shelf life in the NBA, unless your name is Chris Paul, which respectfully, he's not Chris Paul, it's very short. Yeah. And especially your peak of peaks. So 5 years from now, I'm out. Next 2 years, barring a major injury, I think he's one of the best guards in the NBA. And take advantage of that with some of the best perimeter defense and shooting in the NBA and one of the best three-point shooting big men in the NBA. It's a recipe for success, but it's certainly not a guarantee.
No, not a guarantee. And I actually agree with that. I think 2 or 3 years to me is like that. He's at his peak right now. Like I can't imagine he would go to a whole nother level, because if he goes to a whole nother level,
we're talking one of the best peaks of all time.
Yeah, like record-breaking peaks, right? Especially for the Knicks.
Especially for somebody his size, too.
Man, crazy. And so what he's done has been super impressive, and to catapult himself into the upper echelon of superstars in the league. Seemingly, it's not out of nowhere, because I think we all knew that he had that ability. Seeing him play against the Suns and playing in his last year with the Mavs, you saw what the ability that was there, but he didn't have that freedom. Now he does. He's the face of that franchise now, unequivocally. Like he's that dude. So, we'll see, man. There's a lot to be determined this year, and obviously we're all excited to see that. You can catch up more on your PHNX Suns by going to watch the show later on today, 3 p.m. today, and the big announcement coming up here in just moments. And no, I'm not breaking the big announcement. That is not my news to share. That is the crew. And so you can check out that and the details of said, big news on their show today at 3 p.m. Also, become a diehard. Diehard's the greatest thing you could ever do in your life. Become a diehard, subscribe, get that merch, get a free shirt upon sign up. Also, you get discounts to so many things, events. You get discounts on merch. You get discounts on just about everything you could possibly think of that we have to offer. Our partners are so great at giving back to you guys. So become a diehard. And also, listen, there's some big news regarding the diehard stuff this week. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. And in addition to that, all that content that you love and enjoy, well, guess what? Some of it's going to be behind that good old lovable paywall, and you're going to have to pay for that access because, listen, we got to put the lights on. So that's how we go.
I'll tell you this. Our diehards right now know the announcement. The announcement has already been sent in the diehard Discord. They know early. So if that is the type of community that you want to be kind of a part of the behind the scenes and everything, you want to know things before other people, become a diehard today.
There you go. All right. Breaking news. So there we go. That's another episode of Outside Shots. Major thanks to Eric for stepping in for EJ today behind the Mac. We appreciate you all for joining us on another great episode. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, whatever you want to do on your way out. We'd really appreciate it. Until next Monday.